Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year. Didn't that music wake you up? Come on. Okay. My name is Julie Denny, and I'm co-convener of these roundtable breakfasts on the first Thursday of every month, with very few exceptions. And we start off, for those of you who have not been to a roundtable breakfast, by going around the room and introducing ourselves and giving one or two sentences about what brings us here today or what we're doing. And we do that for two reasons. And my apologies to all of you who hear this speech every first Thursday. The first reason is because our speaker gets a chance to know who and what areas of practice are in the room to better shape his or her remarks. And the second reason is that many people are on an exploration. They're seeking a new career. They're thinking something in the dispute resolution field might suit them. And they may hear something from someone in the room that appeals to them, and then they may want to go talk to that person at the end of the program. So we're going to do that, and I will tell you also that we break briefly at 9:30 to let anyone who desperately needs to leave and go to work to do so, and then we continue until 10 o'clock when we do stop. Okay? Those are the rules of the game. All right, so I'm Julie Denny. I'm a mediator, have been since 1993, and I do mostly discrimination cases for a number of different government agencies. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Joanne.
Good morning. My name's Joanne Barak. Stand up. I am an arbitrator with the American Arbitration Association. I'm on 3 of their panels, including the international panel. I'm also a mediator with the Rockland Mediation Center. That's Rockland County, New York. And I'm here this morning because I am married to an Israeli gentleman, and I have been trying for nearly 40 years to get inside the mind of my husband.
What can I say after that? I'm Retta Barron. I work in the New York City Public Schools teaching mediation to kids and to help teachers implement restorative practices, basically community building circles and sometimes disciplinary circles in the classroom and within the school.
Hi, my name is Lara. I'm from Belgium. It's an unexpected presentation. I have a lawyer background. I practiced in Belgium before I joined an organization called Avocats Sans Frontières, Lawyers Without Borders. And I worked with them for many, many years. And one of the settings I had to work with was Israel-Palestine. So I have a particular interest in that setting and what's going on there. Today I work on justice reform issues, and I'm also an apprentice at the New York Peace Institute.
That wasn't so hard, was it?
Hi, good morning. My name is Deborah Latunde. I'm from Nigeria, but I'm an undergraduate student in Canada. I'm studying international development and globalization, and I came to New York like about a week ago, some days ago, for my internship in Meaningful World as a UN intern. So I'm pretty empty. I don't have that much profile.
Nigeria, Canada, the United States.
Right, doesn't sound too empty to us. I'm Leslie Popoff. I'm a psychologist and the UN coordinator for Meaningful World.
Good morning. My name is Marty Isaac. I've been to these breakfasts for about a year now. I'm an engineer, and I do arbitrations for the American Arbitration Association on their complex construction and engineering projects. I'm also an arbitrator and mediator for FINRA. I'm an Israeli, and I am here to listen to Dr. PELEG.
Good morning. First breakfast. I feel like such a newbie. My name is Michelle Arbid. My background is actually in psychology. I came over from Beirut. I'm Lebanese American, so I was working there in the prison system as a psychologist, where I was so deeply set and working with conflict and that kind of immersion in such a conflict society at a government level got me interested into conflict resolution. So I came to New York for the NECR program, which I recently graduated from, and I'm now working at the IMCR in the Bronx, mediating at the community level, and working in conflict coaching, and I also work on the Sustainable Peace Mapping Project at the Earth Institute at Columbia. So I am here to meet all of you, and of course, to hear the lecture.
Morning, Citizen Sayer, that's it.
Good morning. My name is Goja. I'm a current student at Columbia University. I've been interned in the EOC and YDO, and I happen to know Mr. Matthew Latimer, and he recommended me to be here to hear the roundtable.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Farrick. I'm an attorney. I worked for LexisNexis for 18 years, and I became a mediator about 3 years ago. I'm from Rockland County as well, and I started a small family mediation practice, and I'm just more interested in conflict resolution, and I'm interested in the topic today, so.
Hi, I'm Kelly Arno. I'm a mediator, and I'm just here to learn more about the conflict resolution, my first breakfast.
Good morning, my first breakfast as well. My name is Tanya Joyner. I am in the hospitality industry, actually, and I have been mediating, and I've come here because of the beautiful Maria Volpe. I met her on a couple of mediations that I've done with Stop and Frisk, and I'm also a professor in the CUNY system, so I teach on human relations in the workplace, customer service, and all the wonderful things about service, and I definitely wanted to be here regarding this topic. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jim Eisenberg. I like to come here. I've known Maria a long time. I chaired the board of the New York Peace Institute for, I guess, when we first started. I've done a lot of international work with an organization called Partners. It was for Democratic Change, Partners Global. So I've set up conflict resolution centers in about 12 countries. I'm an old guy, and one of the things I created about 12 years ago is a youth police initiative program that we've done in a number of cities across the country and internationally to build trust between police and young people. So I'm very interested in our today's speaker. And then I'm executive director of an organization, NAFI, and very involved with keeping young people out of institutions and building community-based programs here in New York. We're in about 5 or 6 counties. It's nice to be here, though it's a little chilly out.
Good morning. My name is Roseanne Moore. I'm an independent consultant in strategic planning and corporate ethics, and also a developmental book editor. I'm a board member of Mediators Beyond Borders and chair of their membership engagement committee. So anybody wants to know more about MBB, I'm happy to talk about that. And that's all. Happy New Year.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Williams, and I'm new to mediation.
Good morning. Ray Strecker, certified financial planner, new mediator, and divorce financial analyst.
Good morning. I'm Susan Petza, international attorney. I've mediated and arbitrated maritime causes most of the time. Right now, I'm volunteering as a mediator, trainee at CMS, Community Mediation Services. And I'm here to learn more about conflict resolution that's in our lives every day, pretty much.
Good morning. I'm Nick Pinto. I'm an attorney, and I have mediated in the past in community mediation settings. And I recently heard Ms. Volpe speak at the New York City Bar, and she recommended these breakfast roundtables, and I'm here to see it firsthand. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is David Lichtenthal. I'm a faculty member at Baruch College. I was originally brought to this kind of topic over 20 years ago. Oh, is that better? Do I have to say my name again? Okay, could just spell it? I may continue. Okay, very nice. Thank you. Good. Originally attracted to mediation about 20 years ago. I'm a journal editor and found there was a lot of conflict between reviewers and board members and so forth. And Maria brought me into the fold very gratefully. Maria, thank you, really. And I've also noticed that it's helpful in committee assignments at the college and mediating with students from the first day of class to the last day of class. The grades are being negotiated on a constant basis. And I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for my training here. I was somewhat naive given my relative youth. What else do I want to say? I'm here now, this intangibles of conflict resolution. I'm always looking for a new metaphor, if you will, or a way of viewing the nuance of conflict, because there's really no limit to learning about it and learning about myself in relation to the subject matter.
Good morning, Bonnie Selterman. I've been an educator and a mediator for about 20 years, primarily at NYU and at the New York Peace Institute and its predecessor organizations. I'm very happy you're here today. Thank you for coming. Two things on topic, I would say. One is in 1970, I went to Israel as a young American, a college-age American, coming from a Jewish background, Jewish family, I'm secular. What struck me, I could not believe, is that in particular areas, the Arabs and the Jews at those particular places were sitting, having tea, chatting, playing some kind of board game or peg game or whatever. I was the stranger. I felt a Jew in the so-called homeland that I might be welcomed, or an American with the ideological, political affinities and whatnot, I might be welcomed. I was the outsider, some hippie American college student or something. Well, that may be true, Julie. That may be true. The other thing that I hope that you speak to is, it seems to me in watching how horribly this whole situation has only gotten worse in these decades, I can't help but think constantly that if only each side were educated more about the other side, and then I get wrapped up into that never-ending cycle of, but you need trust to trust the education that you're getting. Where is that information coming from? How can I know that unless I trust you? And I hope you speak to that tension. I assume that you will.
Hi, my name is Zakia Williams-Wells, and I'm a senior at the School of Industrial and Labor Relations at Cornell University. I was recently trained by the Scheinman Institute on conflict resolution as a student mediator, and so I'm here today just to learn a lot more about the field.
Hi, I'm Mark Patterson, and I've recently retired from serving as a military lawyer for 24 years, and I'm now going to school in international dispute resolution for a master's of law program at Fordham, just up the street. And through my practice, varied things, a lot of different sorts of conflict I've been involved with, and now interested in focusing on that.
Good morning. My name is Brandon. I have a pretty weird, eclectic background, so I'm not going to go into all that. But right now, I guess the most relevant thing I do is I am an intercultural dialogue facilitator for students in online video exchanges. So over the internet, we'll have students from predominantly Muslim societies and predominantly Western societies, and they'll, enter into dialogue about world issues and things like that. So I'm one of the facilitators for that, and like I said, I guess that's the most relevant, so I'll keep it at that. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amina Othman. I'm a student here at John Jay, and I'm Dr. Volpe's intern.
I'm Maria Volpe. I'm really happy that everyone's here. This is breakfast number 189. since 9/11. I was telling Julie this morning that we wouldn't be here because in 2007, I decided after 6 years of breakfasts, it was time for us to move on. And Julie was then president of ACR GMY, and she said, "Oh, but we can't give up this tradition." And here we are, all these years. It's more than 7 years since that happened, so what, another 9 years? 9 years. Yeah. So here we are. We never know how these things continue to, or when we have these kinds of events, we never know how they get started and how they continue. Well, I'm really grateful that Julie was the inspiration for us to continue here. And I'm really thrilled that MULI has agreed to present here this morning and look forward to hearing about the intangibilities of conflict resolution in Israel. I was there in March in Israel and the Palestinian territory, so this is a very near and dear topic to me. Let's see. We've got lots of new people.
Hi, I'm Lavinia Hall. I'm a mediator for, I guess, over 30 years now. I've taught at a number of universities and on a number of continents. Happy to be here.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Bob Fry. I'm a documentary, and I'm working on, I've just finished another film on nuclear weapons. And if there's any area that I can think of where conflict resolution is necessary, I think that's one of the areas. I won't go into further detail, but I'm pleased to be. Words, the battery's going.
Good morning, I'm Patricia Haynes, and I'm a community mediator mostly, but I do other things on the side.
Hi, Althea Seaborn. Hello, Althea Seaborn, Norwalk Community College criminal justice professor and volunteer mediator.
Hi, I'm Mary Austin. The trains were stalled. I'm a mediator and arbitrator and healthcare attorney. My mediation interest is particularly in commercial and healthcare.
Here we go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Meredith Carbonell. My background is in human rights and genocide studies. That's what I studied as an undergrad at NYU, and that led me to the NEC program at Columbia University, which I'm a first-year student.
Good morning, I'm Kevin McKay. I'm a retired New York State trial judge. I'm on the Southern District mediation panel now. I also do hearings for the Department of Justice in the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. And some years ago, I was an adjunct professor here. And I come to learn.
Peace and blessings. My name is Catherine Jennings. However, I am Joy. And I'm here as a worldwide citizen to learn how to be the change that I want to see.
Hi, good morning. I'm Nina Edelman. I'm a family law attorney. I'm just starting to learn about mediation. I just met Maria at the event at the New York City Bar and heard about this breakfast and very interested in the topic, and just saw a wonderful documentary on this topic called Disturbing the Peace that I highly recommend.
Hi, I'm Norm Merritt. I'm actually married to a mediator who you'll meet in just a minute. And I'm here because she uses mediation techniques on me, and I'm curious to find out. I want to know more what she's doing.
Hi, I'm Armine Merritt, the other half of this, and he's actually a natural-born mediator, which makes me very lucky. I practice mostly employment mediation. I'm an attorney. I did my mediation training here at John Jay a number of years ago, and also at Cardozo School of Law, where I received my law degree. So.
Hi, I'm Robin Meiler-Mann. I'm a litigator and a family mediator. I do active mediations between couples, and I think conflict is conflict in any arena. You can learn from conflict in all arenas across.
Hi, my name is Jason Meislish. I'm a former big law litigator, interested in conflict resolution, did mediation training through NYC-Dispute, and I've started co-mediating through NYC-Dispute as well.
Good morning. I'm Vicki Jan Eisler. I'm an attorney, an academic, and an alternative dispute resolution professional. I teach for the International Training Institute, Mediators Beyond Borders International, as well as serve as their UN representative. And I practiced primarily environmental law for almost 30 years when I realized part of what we were doing was mediation and that there was a better way.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Feldman. I'm a lawyer who also has her PhD in clinical psych. I've been trying to find a way to marry my two skill sets, and I think I have a home here in mediation. I came today because my partner and I have conflicting views on Israel, and in the words of Schoolhouse Rock, knowledge is power.
Hi, my name is Kevin Frankel. I'm also an attorney, and I focus on criminal prosecution and interested in conflict resolution.
Good morning, I'm Oceane Hooks Camiri. I'm a contemporary and modern dancer, and I work in the service industry, and I'm looking to get out of the service industry, and I have a bit of a background in life coaching and diversity peer education when I was in college, and I'm curious about this field.
Thank you. Pardon my back. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm Chuck Newman. I'm a commercial and divorce lawyer, a commercial divorce, labor, and community lawyer. I do my community volunteering at Staten Island at NYC-Dispute. I'm on a couple of boards and committees. I'm on a couple of court panels, period. I'm also a member of the board of the Association for Conflict Resolution Greater New York chapter, as Maria and Julie have explained, one of the co-sponsors of this. I invite you, Denise Shaw, our president, is here, who will say hello in a moment. I invite you to speak to either Denise or me after the program. We'd be delighted to tell you about all the benefits of membership. It is very inexpensive. We do lots of interesting, forward-thinking things, and we'd love to have you as members, so please speak to us afterwards. Thank you. Happy New Year, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. My name is Pasi Mäntylä. I have a business and banking background and with MBA and JD, and I just came here to learn about the subject. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sabra Sasson. I'm an attorney and a mediator. I focus my practice in family law and prenups and postnups. And oh, thank you. I didn't realize I wasn't speaking into the mic. I'm not used to that. And I'm just here to learn more. I always love coming to the monthly meetings, and the topics sounded really interesting. So good morning.
Good morning. My name is Fran Sapshon. I'm an attorney and also have a degree in counseling. I have an interest in exploring mediation and alternative dispute resolution generally. I also attended the New York City Bar Association conference on the topic, and at Dr. Volpe's recommendation, I'm here.
Good morning. My name is Tzvi Blech. I work in real estate and a little bit in the arts. I was here last month for the first time, and I was so impressed that I became a member. And I am very disturbed about the conflict ripping apart our country, and I'm here to learn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Ager. I'm a community coordinator. I'm here this morning in terms of the indifferences between Israel and Palestine due to the regentification process that is happening across a lot of the urban communities today. It's creating a lot of tension in communities of color because we're being displaced. We're having to move not by choice, but because we can't afford a lot of the immediate areas anymore because of the aggression of regentification, and it's causing a lot of violence in our communities. So I'm here today just to pick up some points and try to put out some of these fires.
Greetings, my name is Teresa Ann Willis, and I am a middle school humanities teacher, but I'm also a restorative practices facilitator. I facilitate trainings for K through 12 schools, public and private, anywhere.
Oh, no, she did. Hi, I'm Tufnat Peleg Baker. I'm also married to an Israeli. He's standing right here. So it will be an opportunity to learn something from him.
I'm also trying to marry all the things that I'm doing. I'm a professor of conflict resolution. Actually, I like to call it engagement and, and negotiation. I'm a mediator, educator, working on my doctoral dissertation on biases, and I'm a psychologist, so psychological barriers to dialogic relations and conflict transformation. So I'm really happy to be here and meet you all. I'm at a juncture now, so I'm trying to figure out what to do with all this knowledge, and I keep learning every day. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Tom Rothschild. I work at Brooklyn Friends School, a Quaker school in downtown Brooklyn, where I bring more understanding of what Quaker witness means and related things, including one session that I did on Palestine-Israel issues. I'm a member of the State Bar Mediation Committee, and my real passion is for conflict transformation as a way, among other things, to not only resolve conflicts but find spiritual growth, both individually and organizationally.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. All right, we've got one more in the back. And Denise, where are you? There you are. How could I miss you in that jacket?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Denise Shaw, and I'm a mediator, arbitrator, and also president of ACRGNY. And really proud of all of our colleagues who come together to put these breakfasts together. But also, the thing that I want to say is you've heard all of the introductions of all of the people who are here today, and you all do many different things, but you're united in your interest in conflict resolution. So one of the things I want to say is to invite you to really join the organization so that you can be a part of this effort and also contribute some of your own individual interests to some of our programs and to our conference, which is in June.
We'd like you to tell us who you are and what brings you here, briefly.
Oh, okay. My name is Violet Diamond, and I'm interested in learning more about mediation, so that's why I'm attending.
Sounds good. Okay, now who else is new? Right here in the white fur.
Hi, I'm Vivian Taub. I'm a former student of Maria Volpe, so I'm always very happy to be here.
Great. And someone else back here is new.
Good morning. I am Lakeisha Williams, new to the mediation game. I try to hang out wherever Dr. Shaw and Dr. Volpe are. I hang out with this lady right here, and I am the policy associate at Goddard Riverside.
All right, have I missed anyone? Oh, Mark came in. I saw Mark. There he is. Yeah.
Mark Kleiman. I've been involved a long time in ADR, and recently stepped away from my leadership of community mediation services.
Welcome. All right. What a gang. This is great. Are you prepared?
Yeah. Do you have enough time for me, though?
No pressure on you.
No.
Okay. Dr. MULI PELEG is our speaker today, and he's going to talk, as you know, about the intangibles of conflict resolution. He is currently a professor at Rutgers, and let's see, he specializes in conflict analysis and conflict resolution and everything else that goes along with those broad fields. He's written a number of books, and he has a new one coming out in 2017 called Identity and the Coordinated Management of Meaning. And he serves as a top advisor at the Perez Center for Peace, and I'm sure some allusion to that will be included in his remarks on the intangibilities of conflict resolution. So welcome, MULI. We're delighted you're here. Take it.
Thank you. What an honor and pleasure to be here this morning with you. And I really appreciate the fact that you yanked yourselves out of your warm beds in this cold January morning to be with us. And the honor of giving me the opportunity of opening the session for this year, 2017. And let's hope it'll be better from the previous one in so many ways. I'm a political scientist, but I really work in the interface between politics, society, culture, and communication. And lots of things are happening there. Lots of conflict. And I notice many of you mentioned that they are interested in conflict resolution, but none has said that they're interested in conflict. And I think that's the first step in order to make ourselves better mediators and negotiators. We need to really be fascinated and interested in the phenomenon of conflict itself. So I would like to start by presenting you a useful for me, hopefully for you as well, a useful definition, working definition of conflict. That would be my point of departure. And this will lead me to conflict resolution, because there's a lot of symmetry between conflict and conflict resolution as I see it. And this will lead me to focus on a very specific kind of conflict, which is the intractable one, the deep-rooted one, the protracted one. Because I still am fascinated, mesmerized by this vexing topic of why conflicts endure. What makes them intractable? What makes people so gung-ho about entering a conflict, but then they are much more reluctant and hesitant about leaving the conflict and moving towards conflict resolution, spending some time in between on conflict management? I was curious about this. I didn't want to take it for granted. Most of us are engaged, embroiled in conflicts, but less so, much less so, in conflict resolution. So what is the appeal? What is the appeal? What is so attractive about conflict and less so about conflict resolution? That was my guiding questions with regard to my current study, my current research in Israel, and also with regard to other venues of conflict that I immerse myself in. Because through the years, as you know, conflict is a ubiquitous phenomenon. And basically in every level and dimension of human engagement, we have conflict. So I've dealt with, together with Tzofnat, with my spouse in Israel, in tensions and conflicts and disagreements between seculars and religious, between Jews and Arabs within Israel, between Israelis and Palestinians, globally, with my affiliation with the Martin Luther King Foundation and the Realizing the Dream organization. We work with various cultural groups and ethnic groups. As a professor at Rutgers, especially as a Schusterman professor, I was called to mediate or to lower the flames in all kinds of confrontations between various student groups, Muslims, Jewish, Israeli, Palestinians, what have you. And I've managed to observe similarities more than dissimilarities in all those various levels of conflict. So this definition that I would like to introduce you to is a combination of a sociologist, an economist, and a political scientist, namely Johan Galtung, Kenneth Boulding, and C.R. Mitchell. And I think it's very useful, and it contains 4 components. The first one is you need more than one entity to have a conflict. Not necessarily more than one person, mind you, right? Because we have all those internal conflicts. That's the contribution of the psychologists to this field. But even if it's an internal conflict, it's something that is going on between what we are and what we want to be. What we are and what we used to be. Again, more than one entity. Then there needs to be some kind of a assessment or a perception underlining the perception of incompatible interests between those entities, a zero-sum game, and most importantly, there need to be awareness to those incompatibilities. Because many of the conflicts are latent, incipient, embryonic, because we don't have any awareness or semi-awareness, and thus we don't operate upon those incompatibilities. You probably remember that I was talking about 4 components, and here comes the 4th, which I think is the most important and gives meaning to all the previous 3. And this is, not this, choice. You see, we can realize that we have incompatible interests with other entities. We might be exposed and aware of them, but we decide, we choose not to opt for conflict. So basically what I'm saying here, that conflict is human decision based. Mind you, sometimes the options are bleak. Up on the top of the Masada, 2 options for the zealots: suicide or falling for the Romans. Still an option, which they took, right? So, as I see it, and I do not claim a sole possession of the truth, but as I understand it, and this is what helping me in my research as well, we choose to enter conflict for various reasons. Some of you're aware of, some of them are hidden. We choose to enter conflict. The reason why conflicts tend to escalate is that we cannot determine the end point, because conflict is an interaction. It's a pattern of communication, and other entities, players, agents are involved. So because we know the beginning and we cannot tell the end, conflict tend to run out of our hands. This is one of the reasons for escalations. There are several more reasons for that. Let me continue with the basics before I continue into the main thesis that I want to introduce to you. And this is the structure of conflict. As I see this definition, this is a generic definition. Such a definition can suit every type of conflict on every level of human engagement. Think about your own conflicts, all the ones that you're trying to grapple with, and see if you can find a trace of each of these components. Another factor, which is generic as I see it, is the structure of conflict. Thinking about the same structure, or a similar structure, of course, in each level or each sphere of influence, there are different nuances and emphasis. But overall, the bedrock is the same with regard to structure. 3 components, and this is also from Galton. This is why we talk about the conflict triangle: situation, attitude, and behavior. In each of them, you can start tracing what I call the intangibilities of conflict. If I am to assess the relative importance of each of those dimensions, I would say conflicts turn to bog down and become protracted in the attitude component. This is the psychological component. This is where we gather all our thoughts, images, associations, labels, generalizations, prejudice, stereotyping of the other. But the situation and behavior also are plagued by all those intangibilities that makes them very, very complicated for us to grapple with. Because the situation is not what actually happens, but what we think happens. Everything is being interpreted through our cognitive system. And our cognitive system is basically a defense mechanism that ushers in to our psyche mostly the things that are already established within us, the things that corroborate our preconceived notions and values and beliefs. And this is why we let in from the outside world only a very narrow and selective portion of events, which are already interpreted through a very narrow lens. Behavior also goes through our cognitive system because we have lots of moral inhibitions to operate violently in a confrontation. And thus, what happens that leaders, decision makers, have all kinds of systems and methods to lower those inhibitions in various tactics, propaganda, slogans, and what have you. I'm going to touch on this later. But again, everything I say now, try to apply it to the conflicts you are familiar with in your own field. See if it sticks. See if it holds. See if it is relevant to what you are doing. Here is the triangle. And the triangle, what happens in the triangle, also the escalation processes happens there. In various models of escalation, let me give you just one briefly. We have a situation that gave birth to the conflict. All kinds of conditions and circumstances that influenced the player to opt for conflict or to avoid conflict. Then we have the need to gather our troops and gather our ranks, unify our people vis-a-vis the other, capital O. Well, we start operating and we start streaming all kinds of negative images of the other. This is the strategy of conflict. It does not stem from hatred or fear. These come later. These are the bonuses of this strategic mechanism. And then we operate upon our perceptions of the other. But here is what's happening after the behavior. After we sacrifice, and we operate violently, and we lose people and money and property and time and energy, we reassess the situation that got us into this in the first place. And we say to ourselves, for this, we invested all that? No. Let's expand the zone of disagreements. Let's make it rational. Rational, I mean comparing goals with means. When conflicts start to deviate towards the irrationality, those who initiate the conflict try to make amends and render the conflict rational again because they have lots of explanation to make. So they either lower the goals or they bring the means higher, see, to make a better fit again. So they change or reshape the initial situation, make it harsher and more menacing in order to merit, in order to justify sending more negative images, lower more moral inhibitions, and send more troops to the battleground. And thus, we have this cycle of conflict escalating out of our hands. Is this clear? Good. Here is a very important thing that I put a lot of emphasis in my studies. Every conflict happens in a context, in a conflict environment. And in order to understand conflict, we need to fathom the environment. For example, if you talk about political conflicts, and we cannot make sense of the place and time it erupted. This is because we did not delve into the environment. What happened before it? And when I say environment, it's not necessarily the physical environment. It's a combination of the political environment, the cultural, the psychological, the historical, the emotional, lots of venues to understand. To understand what? What brought the actors to decide to join the conflict? What made their decision plausible, feasible, attractive to them? In the same venue, and I mentioned earlier that there is symmetry between conflict and conflict resolution, there is a conflict resolution environment. Same questions. What are the conditions and circumstances that brought the agents to opt for resolution, leaving the battlefield, so to speak, leaving the confrontation and moving to the table, to negotiation? That's not to be taken lightly. As mediators, you know, this is one of the most difficult, cumbersome tasks, to convince the protagonists to leave the conflict and try a different venue to accomplish their goals. Not to forego their goals, but that conflict resolution is a better venue to achieve the same goals. So let's go deeper into what conflict is and what it brings with it. I think one of the most important things to distinguish between conflict and conflict resolution and to adhere to when we try to cope with conflict is communication. As I said earlier, conflict is a pattern of communication. As war, as peace, these are all communication channels, different type of communication. But as an analytical tool to understand those two phenomena, it's a very useful instrument, communication, to hold on to in order to understand those differences. So, communication during conflict is destructive. There's a lot of noise, a lot of fog in the channel, because we don't want really to understand everything that the other is saying, because we want to fight the other. And if we'll understand all the nuances in the other's messages, God forbid, conflict will be prevented. No, we seek to be in conflict. So communication is distorted, strategically so. Then, of course, all the consequences, suspicion, lack of trust, obstructive behavior. And our orientation is not to agree. Our orientation, at least in the early going, is to win. Is to win. I really don't recall any single historical example whereby a party decided to get into conflict and they said, we're going to lose. We don't have any righteous claim here, but we're going to go at it anyway. Very rare. Actors, when they decide to go, part of the calculations is that we're going to sustain, we're going to persevere, and sooner or later, ultimately, we will prevail. Accentuating differences. I mean, all those ideas of we are not only different, but better. And the other is not only inferior, the other is also an obstacle for us to accomplish our goals, are very driving forces, stimuli, incentives, motivations to choose conflict. Collaboration at this stage is not an option. When you enter conflict and you explain all the people you gather around you, the reasons and the prospective consequences of your effort, you don't really talk about collaboration, because collaboration at this stage is perceived as a sign of weakness. This is, of course, totally different in the orientation of conflict resolution. Again, communication, this is parallel, you notice. Constructive, attentive, transparent. We are very, very attuned to every nuance of the messages of the other because we want to finish this conflict. So we don't want to make any mistakes understanding the other parties. Friendliness, congeniality instead of suspicion, productive, coordinated, and sincere attempt to agree. You see something that jumps right at you here. This is not easy. This is not easy. Because when you build yourself up towards conflict, and sometimes it takes a very long period of preparation to enter conflict, when your mindset is geared towards confrontation with the other because the other is less than you, it's very difficult to switch to the opposite orientation. And this is one of the major obstacles we run into when we try to intervene in various conflicts, to change the dynamics and the direction of people after they manage to convince themselves so firmly that this conflict is right, and this conflict leads them to a better situation, and this conflict will help them accomplishing their goals. So let's be more precise about this. Moving from conflict to conflict resolution is difficult. Let me give you an example through a very lovely scene from Kramer versus Kramer. Have you seen this film? Yes. Of course, of course. So, you're familiar with the context. You're familiar with the conflict environment. What leads to the conflict? And what is the situation? And what I want to demonstrate here, that even if you have an initial goodwill, readiness to reach out to the other side, even if you have the understanding that the conflict is stuck and this stalemate leads you nowhere, and maybe you realize conflict resolution and even compromising and concessions might be a better solution. Once you enter this interaction, those intangibilities get the best of you. And I think this short scene really exemplifies this transition. How come they heard Whitney Houston so well? Oh.
Yes, who is this?
Louise, you want to get that? Louise, it's ringing, honey.
Yeah, hello. Yes, who is this? Joanna. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
You look great. How's your...
What?
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, how's your job?
Fine, fine. Vice president of nothing. No, really, it's going good.
Excuse me, would you like a drink?
Whatever she's having.
White wine.
Wine.
How's Billy?
He's terrific. He had a last one a couple weeks ago on the playground, and he cut himself. It was really scary. I ran him all the way to the hospital. He's got a little teeny scar, but he'll be fine. I've been worrying that it's my fault.
No, don't do that. Can't even see it from a distance. Sometimes I sit in that coffee shop across the street from his school and watch him. He got so big.
You've been watching him from the coffee shop?
Well, I've been in New York for about 2 months now, so...
I didn't know that.
Anyway, that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because last time you saw me, I was in pretty bad, really bad shape. Yeah, I was.
Well, you look really? Lovely now. What?
I have a whole speech.
No, go ahead.
I don't know. All my life, I've felt like somebody's wife or somebody's mother or somebody's daughter. Even all the time we were together, I never knew who I was. And that's why I had to go away. And in California, I think I found myself. And I got myself a job. I got myself a therapist, a really good one. And I feel better about myself than I ever have in my whole life. And I've learned a great deal about myself.
Such as? No, I'm really, I'd really like to know what you learned.
Well, I've learned that I love my little boy. And that I'm capable of taking care of him.
What do you mean?
I want my son.
You can't have him.
Don't get defensive. Don't try to bully me.
I'm not
okay?
getting defensive.
Who walked out of the house 15 months ago?
I don't care.
Joe.
I am still his mother.
Yes, from 3,000 miles away, and just because you sent a few postcards, it gives you the right to come back
I
here?
never stopped wanting him.
What
and
makes you
loving
so
him.
sure he wants you?
What makes you so sure he doesn't want me?
Okay, look, we're going to sit here and bat this back and forth like it was for 8 years. It's just like old times.
Well, you can't deny me access
Don't tell
to my
me
own.
what I can or cannot do. Don't talk to me that way.
I've anticipated
Okay, look,
this
I don't
whole
want to
thing.
get into this. Look, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do, and I'm going to have to do what
I'm very sorry about this.
Okay,
Because
just do what you have to do.
So you notice in the span of 3.5 minutes how the attitudes changed. There were seemingly, openness and readiness to interact, and very, very quickly the mood changed because everybody was drawn into their, intangibility, which I'm going to elaborate on in a second. And probably some of you, in your capacity as mediators, have met this quick shift of mood. But look what it takes to do this transition, and you can realize why it is so difficult. It takes changing the orientation from independence to interdependence. When I say independence, this is the feeling that we have, a feeling of potency, that we can solve our own problems. We can accomplish our goals without any help, certainly not our enemy, our rival, our adversary. They are the obstacle, never us. But we can handle our own affairs. We can charge and just remove them. This is a feeling of freedom, one of the attractions of conflict. We can solve our own things. And then conflict resolution is really moving to interdependence. Some say dependence, but interdependence. We need the other. Not only the other, our enemy, the obstacle, the inferior other. We need them in order to resolve this issue. Together, as Morton Deutsch used to say, together we swim or sink. That's a very harsh realization. Changing attitude towards self, the way we see ourselves, our uniqueness, self-esteem, entitlement, because this is what we say to ourselves. This is how we bolster our position. We're entitled. We're the good ones. We are, you're familiar with this, the chosen ones. This gives us a lot of power, sense of empowerment in every conflict. And it's always we are the good, the other is the bad. The problem is the other thinks exactly the same about us. And this is what we risk here, losing this sense of superiority and uniqueness. Changing the attitude towards the other side of this equation, losing the enemy, losing identity. When I say losing identity, many groups and many individuals built their identity vis-a-vis the other. This is why conflicts linger. In order to really shape our identity, we need the other. We need contrast. We need to compare why we are good and unique vis-a-vis the other. Every hero needs a villain. What would, I don't know, no hard feelings, right? What would the giant fence do without the Jets? Okay, and vice versa, right? And if we don't have such a backdrop, such a menace, we invent one for our own needs and purposes. You see, in the Middle East, there are two tribes, the Israelis and the Palestinians, who have not finished yet structuring and restructuring and constructing their collective identity. So they need the conflict. Changing the strategy of negotiation, losing the sense of superiority and entitlement. So everything about the environment needs to be changed from conflict to conflict resolution. That's tough. People are being brought up and educated with a certain purpose of understanding the merits of the conflict they find themselves in. And it's very difficult overnight to change your entire orientation. This is why the Oslo agreements faltered. Terrorism and other reasons were secondary. The major reason is that you cannot, with all due respect and with all the good intentions, overnight tell people, forget about all those years that we channeled those images of the other as the devil. No. Forget about it. They're partners. There is a self-defense mechanism for people saying something like, well, we think we are stupid. It's not only inculcated in their minds, it's the textbooks and the folklore and poetry and the theater. Everything is suffused with those negative images of the other, because when you have those negative images of the other, it really means that you have a good image of yourself. These are dialectic. And when you lose the demonized, dehumanized aspect of the other, you lose your self-esteem as well. Ultimately, the thing that we lose is we lose the conflict. We build our tribal fire around this notion of conflict. We felt very good at the brink of this abyss with the other. Now, we don't have the other. So who are we? Here is what I call the four demons of the protractedness of conflict. Well, the four riders of the apocalypse, if you want. I gave this presentation in a similar venue in a church once. So, there was a preacher called and raised his hand and said, leave this analogy. I have a better one for you. Okay, four riders of the apocalypse. So, the temptation to win. Folks, in every conflict, again, we're talking about a ubiquitous phenomenon. In every conflict, we have this temptation to win. Every party preserves this. And every time around the negotiation table itself, negotiation, conflict resolution process, still in a back burner, parties to the conflict keep this option alive. If they see the other parties hesitate, not prepared enough, this is why early planning is so important. If you convey the message to the other around the negotiation table that you are not prepared enough, they will resort to confrontation. And they still try to latch out and grab it from you, because this temptation to win is consistently there. And then the desire for revenge. I've encountered several times people, parties, representatives saying, we know this conflict leads us nowhere. We realize that we need to negotiate and go for some kind of compromise. But before I need to make amends, I need to avenge my losses, my humiliations, what have you put in this box. The need to be vindicated. Again, people that told me, I realize this leads nowhere. This is leading me nowhere, and my costs outweigh my investments, and we need to go out of it. But I need, before I'm signing anything, to find a way to let the world know, and to my people, that this was not in vain, that I had a good reason to do that. This was not a folly. So the urge to vindicate yourself is very, very strong. And ultimately, and this comes up anytime at any stage, lack of trust. I'm willing to do that, but I won't, because the other will not follow through. This is what we call the problem of who blinks first, right? First World War, everybody's stuck along the Maginot Line, and you might think, okay, they fought for 4 years, and for the last couple of weeks they got stuck in the trenches. Think again. They got stuck a couple of months after they started in 1914. So you had 4 years to realize that this is not going anywhere. Nevertheless, nobody came back home. The decision makers stayed adamant. The problem of who blinks first. We realize this leads us nowhere, but if we leave, they will take the opportunity, interpret it as a sign of weakness, and charge, right? The temptation to win and to take advantage. So look at this pile of obstacles to move from conflict to conflict resolution. And if you notice, there is a theme here. All those obstacles fall back on the intangibilities of conflict. This is not political, this is not strategic, this is not economic. This is all go back to the psyche. Let me tell you pretty plainly. If the Israeli-Palestinian conflict had been only on land, it would have been solved or resolved a long time ago. But it's not. It's not. All the problems, all the difficulties, all the issues between Israelis and Palestinians, including Jerusalem, including the right of return, including borders, and all the other very genuine and difficult problems. I'm not undermining them. They can be solved. They are all in the Oslo Agreement and in Geneva Initiative. They are not because of the intangibilities of conflict, because of the lack of trust and all those other reasons that come from within. You're familiar with the prisoner's dilemma. I don't want to dwell into it, go into specifics into it because, well, you had a long introduction here, so I'm cutting as we go. But this model, really, the gist of it is this transition in the mindset of the players into conflict. The realization that they need to think together with the other, right? Because this is an example of the players running through a rational process, as they should have. and nevertheless ending up in the worst possibility for them because they did not collaborate. That's a very neat and parsimonious model, at least in its simplistic form, to realize that in order to salvage ourselves from conflict and move into conflict resolution, we must change our attitude towards the other and relate to the other with all the psychological difficulties as our partner.
We need to take 1 minute here. It's 9:30. Anyone who needs to leave and wants to, thank you for coming. Doesn't look like a lot of movement.
Nobody's running for the door.
No.
Their
Okay.
bosses will be very anxious today.
Thanks.
Thank you. Vote of confidence. All right. This is from Deutsch and Peter Coleman from Columbia University, Barriers and Attractors. Another way to try to explain this vexing issue of why people tend to be stuck in conflict, even if they realize they don't serve them. Barriers, grosso modo, these are 3 categories of barriers, and I assume some of you, especially the Columbia students, are familiar with it. Again, my point here is that all of them, the structural, strategic, and certainly the psychological, fall back on the intangibilities of conflict. How we perceive of reality, what we make of reality, has nothing to do, well, with reality. Because I've noticed some mediators saying, pleading with their partners or clients, but look at reality. There's nothing. Wrong way to do that. Because there's nothing to do with reality. You need to be, first and foremost, I think, as mediators, you need to be psychologists and go to the psyche and try to understand how the other sees the situation, not what the situation is. It's certainly not how you as a third party see the situation, though there is a great temptation to do that. I understand that. But these are the barriers. Barriers are the obstacles that exist between the parties. Attractors, on the other hand, are obstacles to be found within each party to a conflict. This is a list, not an exclusive by any means, of some of the attractors. When we say attractors, these are the reasons why people keep doing the same thing. They have a very disillusioned and bitter and disappointing conflict and argument, and they promise themselves and to the other parties, we won't do that. We won't behave like that. And then the next evening, they behave exactly the same. Why does it happen? Why do we fall back to the same position, even though ultimately on paper we have lots of other options to choose from? Because of those attractors. These are very difficult attractors to get rid of. And in my study, and by the way, my study is between Jews and Arabs within Israel. Although the Israeli Arabs called themselves in the Second Intifada in 2000 Israeli Palestinians. But matters of definition are not arbitrary. They really pertain to feelings, and there is a shift since 2000 among most Israeli Arabs. But this is what I encountered there among Jews and Arabs in the case study of the city of Ramla, which I'll get in a second. And you're familiar with them as well. Think about the United States of America and the historical legacy of the American Revolution. And think about the scriptures and all the symbols of violence, of conflict, of, blood, perseverance. These are well ingrained and embedded in our social conscience. This is from an Israeli sociologist called Daniel Bartal, which I love what he's writing and what he's doing. A very charming person. The socio-psychological infrastructure of conflict. And again, see what it holds in it. Collective memory. And this is the narrative of confrontation. The narrative of confrontation is the explanation. It's not easy to move a nation towards confrontation. 9/12/2001, President Bush really tries to convince the American people that they must go to war against Iraq. And he did that very successfully, although Saddam Hussein, by now you know, well, I hope you know, Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. But he was, at the time, and this is the environment of conflict, he was a soft target. Wait a second, 99% of these perpetrators were Saudis. We cannot attack Saudi Arabia for obvious reasons. Well, we need to do something. We need to opt for conflict because our prestige, our reputation, our self-esteem, intangibilities of conflict, folks, were jeopardized. We need to demonstrate to the world very quickly and swiftly that we are still capable of reasserting our status in the world. Okay, so let's do it. What's the target? Saddam Hussein is target. And then the entire explanation followed. Weapons of mass destruction, well, you know the story. But see how it fits the mode, right? So collective memory and the images. Saddam Hussein standing on the balcony with a machete. Oh, and the mustache. That's a bad guy. It fits. And then we have the ethos of conflict. I love this term, this analytical term, the ethos of conflict, the configuration of shared central beliefs, societal beliefs that provide particular dominant orientation. What are the shared societal beliefs of the American people, of the Swedish people, of the Israelis, of the Hottentotans? They're all the same. We are good people. Heck, we are better. And we hold on to the, I don't like to do it, but I'll do it, the correct beliefs, values, norms, and therefore we are entitled to disseminate them. Because if your shared societal beliefs are something like, I'm a bastard, I'm a mean guy, I don't have anything to disseminate, it's very difficult to mobilize your people to support your venture. And in September 12, 2001, I don't recall massive demonstrations. No, I remember the opposites. Support and flags and yellow ribbons and all that. So the ethos of conflict, coupled with the collective memory, it works. If you think this is a bygone residue of previous centuries, think again. Again, this change of attitude, this change of orientation, nature of conflict, nature of rival, nature of us, it is being bolstered and sustained by the ethos of conflict. And ultimately, the result is the emotional orientation, fear, hatred, anger, disrespect, mistrust, guilt, and pride. We are fully equipped now to launch ourselves into conflict. Under such circumstances, in such a conflict environment, when we are sure who the bad guys are and what needs to be done, what are the prospects of us not choosing to get into conflict? What are the prospects of us extracting ourselves with such a conflict? Not until, well, we win, we take revenge, we establish vindication, and we manage to achieve trust, build trust with who? With bin Laden? With Saddam Hussein? How can we trust those guys? And if we can't do that, let's continue the conflict. These are freezing factors because one of the most important things in conflict resolution is creativity, ingenuity, resilience. Try to think differently. But all those things under the ethos of conflict are frozen. We are so convinced in our truth. We are so convinced that we have 100% of justice that arithmetically the other has, well, 0% of justice, so why bother negotiating with it? Why give a fraction of our justice? Oh, by the way, the other thinks exactly the same, which make it tricky. So there is a kind of an inverse paradigm, I called it. People tend to develop familiarity and comfort with conflict. And they fear conflict resolution. It's unknown to them. And there's a lot of sacrifice, as we noticed earlier. So conflict is the comfort zone. And they don't want to risk conflict resolution. This is again from Daniel Bartal. Intractable conflicts, because these conflicts tend to be intractable. And intractable conflict produce stress and hardship that really generate the need to satisfy our needs for security and tranquility, and to cope with the stress and withstand the enemy. But here, all those things that sustain our effort must be disseminated to everyone. And therefore, all possible venues are recruited for that. Some of them are here: school, media, political and military leaders, cultural products, etc. The image of the other as the bad guy is being channeled in every possible venue to stay alive and keep us within this group cohesion mechanism. And this all leads, of course, to the infrastructure, the psychological infrastructures that sustain the willingness and the desire to sustain the conflict. Collective memory, ethos of conflict, collective emotional. They feed each other, you see. And into this scheme, conflict resolution experts, mediators, need to enter in order to sever the connection between goals and means. See how difficult that is? I don't want to dishearten you or undermine your efforts by any means, but it's good to know what you're heading at. This was the diagnosis, right? But we are here not only for this. We are here mainly for this. So we realize what the situation is. Now, what are we going to do about it? So let me suggest a tool that was very useful for me. I really relate to conflict and conflict resolution as symmetric. I mentioned it a couple of times before. It really means that, you know, if you can think of conflict as going into the woods and lose yourself in all this myriad of knots, conflict resolution is really stepping back the same track out of the woods and untie the knot. This is the image. Try to hold on to it. Let me give you an example from one of the ubiquitous components of conflict that I mentioned earlier. This is the definition of conflict. More than one entity, incompatible interests, awareness, and choice. Conflict resolution is really going back. The first instance of conflict resolution is choosing, realizing that conflict doesn't lead you anywhere and you need to move to conflict resolution. We talked about all the difficulties, right? But you need to ascertain to yourself and then to the people around you that you mobilize so laboriously that we need to move to conflict resolution. Choice is of an essence. If you are being dragged to the negotiation table, the negotiation process is doomed, folks. You need to be there voluntarily. Awareness You need to be aware of the consequences of your shift, what it means for you to see the other differently, what it means to your people, what it means to your interaction with other parties, what it means to your reputation and to your status if you move towards conflict resolution with that person or country. And then try to make an effort to change those incompatible interests to compatible or to collaborative. And ultimately, the biggest achievement is to make you and the other one entity again. So these are some of the challenges that we faced in Ramleh. In a minute, I'll tell you where Ramleh is and what it is and why we went to Ramleh to apply and implement all those principles of moving from conflict to conflict resolution. But our main tool has been CMM, the Coordinated Management of Meaning, which was coined by a very dear friend of ours, Professor Barnett Pierce, the late Barnett Pierce. And it's a genius concept, I think, very useful for me. And CMM takes a communication perspective. Communication becomes the central part of mediation and conflict resolution. And it is built on the principle of social constructivism, which is basically we construct reality around us. There is no objective reality that we are thrown into this, like Heidegger used to say. We construct and reconstruct the reality or the social world around us through interaction with other parties. And the quality of our interaction, the quality of our communication will influence the quality of our social world around us. And here are some of the most important principles we set out to. Coherence with self, we need to understand what we want. Coordination with others, we need to build the situation or the conflict environment together with others, and the realization that reality is malleable. These are some of the models of CNN and CMM, and if you're interested in it, I'm sure you'll find the time to get into them. But I really want to get to the case study. These are some of the things that CMM helped us achieve. Contextualization. In order to understand better what each party wants in an attempt to negotiate, in an attempt to bring solace and lower the flames and really move in earnest to conflict resolution, you need to understand where they're coming from. Not only what they say, but what made them say what they said, right? Don't ask only what. What did you say? But ask why. This is also, as Fisher and Urey mentioned, the difference between positions and interests. It comes into play here. You want to understand what makes the other tick. What are the concerns, the fears, the hopes that motivate them? That is, if you are earnestly into conflict resolution. Because remember, in conflict, you don't care about this. You don't want to ask why. This is your enemy, and you are there to vanquish them. You don't care about their motivations, their inspirations, what made them do this. You don't care about this. You just want to remove them, their obstacle. But if you made the transition into conflict resolution, if you realize that the other is a potential partner, you are more keen now on understanding what's behind the message. Not only what the text is, but what the context is. So contextualizing, CMM helps you do that through those interactions and open of the hearts and moving from positions to interests. Storytelling and narrative. Storytelling is, I cannot really express how crucial storytelling is. Because storytelling really breaks the mold of categorical thinking. Oh, Palestinians, I know all about it. Oh, Jews, oh, Israelis, Iraqis, Hottentotans. Storytelling is individual. Storytelling comes from the heart. Tell us your story. I haven't heard yet a personal story that wasn't interesting. The conflict is fragmented into personal stories, and you start thinking differently about the people facing you. When you hear about their plights and their trials and tribulations, your attitude is changing. It's a process. It's not a panacea. It doesn't happen immediately, because you enter the room with your bag of bitterness and hatred and animosity and all the, well, intangibilities of conflict. It takes time for those to morph into a different, more human, heck, more humane attitude towards the other. Collaboration and problem solving. Again, problem solving is very important. I just skipped the previous slide when I talked about problem solving. The problem solving is very, very important, because what you do there is you try to isolate the problem. That's not difficult. That's not taken for granted, because we got used so many years, especially if we're talking about a protracted ongoing conflict, to the dictum or to the thought that the problem is the other. The problem is the other. I remember a slogan in one of the, a graffiti, one of the walls in Tel Aviv after the horrendous suicide attacks in 2002, 2003. No Arabs equal no terror. Now, terrorism is because Arabs are there. But this is exactly the example of how you break this mold of categorical thinking by listening to individual storytelling and by focusing yourself on the problem. What is the problem? Once you remove the other and bring the other to your side, or the other brings you to their side, you're together now. On the other side of the divide lies the problem, right? But what is the problem? If you're so used to associate or identify the problem with the other, now that the other is not the other, what is the problem? This is so, so crucial to the successful process of conflict resolution and ultimately trust. When you sit with the other for a protracted time in a closed room and you listen to the other, really listening to the other, this is a protracted and enduring and a gradual process of building trust. This is why so many negotiation processes are insulated in a remote place, in a forest somewhere. And you go to bed together. No, that doesn't sound good. You do everything together as people, not as the representatives of a certain camp. The Arab, the Jew, the and the. But as Musa and Moshe, you eat together. You watch a football game together. This does something to you, and trust starts to accumulate. Ramle. Anybody been to Ramle ever? All right. Many, many people haven't been there. Okay. So Ramle is more or less in the middle of Israel. It's not Ramallah in the West Bank. It's Ramle. And it's midway, more or less, between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And the reason we chose Ramle for our case study is that it's basically a representative of every division you can think of and you can find in the Israeli society. It's a deeply divided society. And it's also a very small city, 62,000 people, more or less. It's a lab for researching conflict resolution processes within a deeply divided society. And the last reason we went there is that because, as I write in my article, in 2006, I hosted Martin Luther King III. He came over to Israel, and we tried to implement nonviolence and some of the principles of MLK as conflict resolution strategy among Israelis and Palestinians. And in the, a couple of days before he left, he told me, "Muli, I want to see some kind of community where Jews and Arabs dwell together." We knew one of the officials of the Ramle municipality. I called him. He said, "By all means, come over." And they hosted us. It was a very exciting, very lovely visit. And once I wanted to I needed a place to run this research. Ramleh was the obvious choice because I had already personal familiarity with the people who run the city. So we had very distinctive goals there. We wanted to inhibit effective coordination. We wanted to attack the reasons why effective coordination cannot be achieved there. You have to realize this. Jews and Arabs in Ramleh live in separate neighborhoods. They go to different schools and to different kindergartens, and they play in different playgrounds. They might work in the same offices, but they don't know each other. They run across each other in the corridors. How do you do? How are you? They never visit each other. The only public space that they meet or converge is the market. But then again, they just buy stuff and they go home. So the separation is so conspicuous, especially because it's such a small and intimate place. And we tried to find out what are the reasons they are so apart and how we can get them closer. And one of our foci was to try to do this through identity. How do you identify yourself? And we ran questionnaires before and after. And our purpose was to move gradually from their initial perception of self to what we call in conflict resolution superordinate values. Some common ground that they can identify themselves similarly. These are some of the techniques that we used. For example, timeline. We asked them to draw a timeline and write there the significant points in time for Ramleh and for themselves. And you can imagine that was a pretty exhilarating and sometimes grueling experience, especially, for example, when they got to 1948. And the interpretation, not what happened actually, but how they saw what happened was totally opposite. So we had a great challenge to begin with. They were so wide apart. A great challenge to bring them closer together. Another things that we ran in addition to the CMM models was we tried reverse role simulation. We had a lot of simulations there. We had them playing each other, trying to understand again where the other is coming from and why the other has so much suspicion and mistrust. And that was, again, something which was incredible to see. For the first time, they did not try it before. They did not bother. We are so immersed and embedded in our own fears and concerns. The other is just, this black box of evil. And we never hardly bother, to get into the other's psyche and understand them, right? So for the first time, they realized all the fears and concerns of the other. So that was very useful. And then we read texts together, emphasizing similarities and dissimilarities. And ultimately, joint projects, after we spent some time getting to know each other with all the CMM models in class, we wanted to see if they hold outside. And we went to all kinds of projects and operations, which I'll mention in a second. These are, okay, I'm running through. These are some of the sessions that we had. We had plenary sessions, we had caucuses, and this is, of course, on the left side, this is the market, beautiful market that you should visit. Okay, this is one of the models of CMM that we tried. The major issue here is, I'm a Ramleyan, right? They all agreed on this. But listen to the various, understanding and interpretations of my identity. I am Jewish, I am Palestinian. The red is the Jews, the blue is the Palestinians. We had a core group of 20 activists, community leaders, 10 Palestinians and 10 Jewish. We were here first. We were here first. A model mixed down, the Jewish participants claimed. It can be better, the Palestinians asserted. Equal opportunities in Ramle, the Jews said. Second-class citizens, the Palestinians said. 1948, the Jews, liberation, the year of liberation. Palestinians, the year of occupation. Here is where we established a superordinate goal. Ramle's reputation was a challenge for all. Everybody wanted a better reputation. But here lies the difference. The Jews understood the bad reputation of Ramla because there were Arabs living there. And the Arabs understood it differently because there are too many Jews living in Ramla. It has a better reputation in their eyes of other Arabs in Israel. So what we try to do following this model, this is called the DAISY model for, well, obvious reasons. We were trying to gravitate towards a common ground. And the common ground was the middle of the flower. You're all Ramlians. Try to identify yourselves not as in the beginning. In the beginning, in the initial questionnaire, I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli, I'm a soldier. On the other side, I'm Palestinian, I'm Arab. At the end of this process, everybody put at the first indicator of their identity, I am a Ramlian. So that was, in real time, a transition, a transformation of their attitude towards the other. There's another CMM model. It's called the LUT model, or the storytelling model. Here, you have to really unravel and break down the message of the other. What is this composed of? So you have the stories that you tell. For example, Ramle is a model mixed down. But then you have the stories that you live together but separate. And then there are all kinds of untellable stories, relations and attitudes in a mixed down. You know, I don't want to talk about this. I don't feel comfortable of how I'm treated, so let's skip this. There are untold stories. 1948 was one of the major ones. Unknown stories. What are the historical legacies that everybody brings with it to the city? And unheard stories, real life of coexistence, were very difficult to come by and to find in the Ramle context. So the basic endeavor here is to try to see what each message that you hear from the other consists of. What are the sources of those messages? I'm nearly there.
Okay.
So, some of the caveats that we found out. This is a long, protracted, and cumbersome bottom-up process. This is a grassroots process. We are not disillusioned, that we are not hopeful that policymakers or leaders or members of parliament will do anything to improve the situation in those deeply divided societies. It takes extended intervention, which requires stretched budget, of course, and long-range commitment, permanent on-the-ground presence. Here is another thing, the environment of conflict. We felt very good in Roundtable as long as we've been there, and our core group as well. But the environment of conflict, Israel, the Middle East, ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, is very precarious and very fragile. So we could have had excellent congenial atmosphere but once you stepped out and heard the news, everything came back at you. And also, once they were done with us, they went back to their respective communities with the images, with the prejudice, with the stereotype. So every time we went back after a couple of months, we had to start from scratch. Expectations, better communication patterns, better understanding of the other, expanding circle of participants and stage 2 and 3 of our research, forming a shared Ramlian identity, which we managed to do at least in the core group, and establishing a viable model of acculturation, knowing to know the other. They never set foot in each other's house until we came there. And this is the measuring, the impact that we had. Just notice, for example, number 5, relation between Jews and Arabs are between average and bad. We had different categories. Before the initial questionnaire, 70% of the participants thought that they are between average and bad. After, 30% thought so. The others thought that it's in a better condition. Relation will worsen, 45% before, 35 after. Deeply divided and violent, roundly in 10 years, 32% thought before and only 15 after. Lastly, testimonials. These are two of our participants. Noor, which was an Arab girl but from Bedouin origins, living in Ramle, born in Ramle, 19-year-old. This is what she told us, in tears. I have found friends for life in this room. I wish my entire family would have been here. Then she thought for a moment and said, no, my entire neighborhood, my people. And then as a reaction, from the other side of the room, Amin Adav, he's a religious Zionist, and he held right-wing political views, as he told us in the beginning. And this is what he said as a reaction to Noor's confession. And I wish my rabbi had been here. He kept telling us that we are better than anyone else, especially better than our enemies. I am not so sure about it now. Thank you, folks, for listening.
That's great. That's a great end. What a wonderful way, hopeful way to end. Thank you so much, MULI. All right. We'll see you on the first Thursday of February. Thank you for coming. No questions? I'm sorry, we end at 10 and it's 7 minutes after. I'm sure MULI would love to answer your questions, but the formal meeting is over. So go right up and talk to him.